Chris, thank you so much for being here. Chris Out is a growth hacker, is really renowned in Europe. He was the one of the founders of Rock Boost in Netherlands. He already did some multi-million euro launches. He has more than 300% growth rates, and he already generated results that helped companies in their time to market speed 200 times percent faster. So, Chris, if you can talk a little bit about yourself and how did you started working on growth, that will be great. So our audience can understand a little bit more about you.
Sure. Yeah, thanks for having me, Pedro. I really like to be interviewed and share the story about growth and what the future of growth will look like. Well, I started as a nobody. So I had a startup with two other guys. We did everything wrong, like made all the mistakes that were possible. And then we had to figure out what we did wrong and what's happening in the US, where it seems to be that they were growing companies like crazy and we weren't able to do it. And then we stumbled upon growth hacking, and I completely immersed myself into that field. I have a background in finance, economics, other things. So I worked at KPMG, but I quit my job to become an entrepreneur. And then, like as I said, like the first startup completely failed. And then I immersed myself in the field of growth hacking. And what I saw over there was a very interesting approach on how you can grow companies really quickly, but also sustainably. And basically, the thing we thought was, okay, this is big in the US. It's probably going to become big in Europe also. So let's jump on that wagon and make sure we're one of the first in Europe to talk about it and to consult companies around that. The first couple of years, to be honest, we really had a freaking clue what we were doing. Like we were just testing a lot of things, trying a lot of things. And I think after a couple of years, we really understood, okay, what do you need to do to make a company grow in a good sense or in a bad sense? And we continued that for a couple of years. And last summer in 2020, I decided to sell my shares from Rockboost and start a new company. And what I'm now doing is I'm now consulting companies basically on one thing, which is how they can structure their growth. So I don't do like execution of AdWords campaigns or like Facebook campaigns or those type of things anymore. And I'm really strategic. Okay, how can we structure the business, structure the team, structure the strategy to make sure that you are setting yourself up for extreme revenue growth in the most easy way possible, where it goes smooth and you're not feeling stressed, but you're really getting the maximum out of what you've got right now.
So knowing how to do it or how to execute, everyone can learn. Knowing how to think, it's harder, right? So you are letting people know about the ground rules of growth hacking.
Yeah, well, I think what happened, especially in the last years with the agency, is that like when people from corporates and bigger companies approach you for like multiple six figures engagements, they basically want to have two things. They want to have some kind of structure. Okay, what are we going to do? So that's one thing. And the other thing is basically just doing it. And what I now see is that a lot of companies are now in-housing, so which means that they are hiring the growth hackers themselves or the online marketeers or people who work on the product. And they want to make sure that they do the right things in the right sequence. And because I've seen hundreds and hundreds of mistakes that I've made and that other companies have made, and I've learned that by experience or by reading books or following courses. And what's happening right now is once somebody explains me what their current growth challenge is, I have some kind of mental model where I can really quickly analyze and scope, okay, given this circumstance, this is a problem which sounds like these other 10 things that I've seen. Based on those insights and these books and these frameworks, this is probably the next step that you need to take.
Perfect. So that's why also you start writing a book, probably because you want to pick your knowledge and put it in writing. I think it's the best way of also one of the best ways of passing knowledge to each other. And what do you think that we'll have in this book, and how can this book help companies with these types of challenges?
Yeah, so I think the book, it's still a work in progress. So the first thing which I try to do is that I do a lot of strategy sessions, and I call them growth lever discovery sessions, where within 4 hours I can really quickly analyze, okay, what do you need to do, and this is your next step, and this is how you need to do it. But I charge 2,500 euros per session for that, and especially for a lot of companies, like they don't have these type of budgets to do these type of things. So what I wanted to make sure is that that thought process that I have over there, to make that accessible for everybody, that they can also apply it to themselves. But it also gives me some kind of leverage, and I can make sure that people can either work with me through those online tools and the book, probably more books that are going to come out, or that if they want, they can work directly with me. And it's all about, like, the thing that I see a lot is that companies, when they are stuck on growth, it's because of different things. It's not clear what they need to do, or they are afraid to make certain decisions, or the things that they are doing, they're not doing them in the best way possible. So I'm now creating a model where I can help companies to really get clarity really fast. So you see what's in front of you, what you should do, what you shouldn't be doing, help them to make decisions. For example, I had one client who wanted to make, let's say, 1,000 euros per day, and she had a very big chunk of their revenue was based on an assignment where she was making 500 euros per day, and she couldn't increase her rates over there. Well, then you have a very interesting case, because you can do two things. You can continue doing that work, but then you have limited yourself, like your upside is limited.
Yeah.
Or you make the decision, I need to fire that client, or I need to restructure that. And doing these type of things, that's really difficult. So I'm going to try to make that more accessible and transparent, and I show people how they can do that. Because the moment she called that client, you know what, I can't do it like that anymore. Another client called who basically wanted to pay 3 times more than an old client. So I really believe that if you're able to release those type of things and you make a decision, then you open up room for higher margin activities. And the third thing is basically, how can you get more about what you're doing? And once you know that something works, you've identified the pattern of what works, that you can really institutionalize that into assets, and that you can automate it and get the most out of it.
Okay, that sounds great. And also, I think that part of having a process is incredible, and knowing what type of process is for each stage of each of each company, it's really important. So going a little bit deeper on this idea of the future of and what's coming, and you said more books are coming and more ideas are coming. Where do you see the growth hacking or growth marketing market going? Because as you said, this was a trend that was catching up on the US a couple no 10 years ago, but it's migrating to Europe. More and more you are seeing agencies and companies going to growth, but it's something that is quite coming only right now in Europe. So where do you see the future going here, and what do you think that will happen in the next couple of years?
Yeah, so I think a lot of people are talking about AI and automation and these type of things and machine learning, but that only works when you have a lot of data, and that only works when you have certain things in place. You'll see that a lot of tools will come up, new platforms will come up, and you also see that old platforms that were working, like for example Facebook or Twitter, where you see now like they are going down in some way, like people are actively removing themselves from those platforms. You'll see that will change the entire dynamic. So what I've always been trying to do is to not look at the tactics or the tools, but learn the principles behind it. So for example, a very strong principle that every growth hacker should embrace is that there are always new platforms coming up. And once it starts, there are not a lot of people are already monetizing or like exploiting the possibilities of that platform. So there's some kind of window where you can get really good returns. Like when you were the first who started advertising on Facebook or on Snapchat or on Facebook or on Google, you would make really good returns. If you do that right now, it's really hard to create the returns you could make like years ago.
Hmm.
But what's the principle? New platforms will come up, and be the first over there, that you can guide people from that platform into your other funnels, where you know that these funnels or these growth loops, or how you want to call them, already work really well, and you stack those channels on top of each other, and you do it with that mindset. Then you're really building a machine that can help you grow. So the principles will stay the same, but you need to be flexible on the tactics and the tools and really adopt them faster than your competitors are doing that.
Okay, that's really interesting. Finding your niche in a way, and exploring that niche. Yeah, I totally agree, and I think that that will be something that we should be always looking for. So, as the last question of this small interview, that I think that most people, if they want to know more, they can just follow you on LinkedIn and Twitter and Facebook. You are always sharing information, and it's really interesting to connect with you. I just want to know what piece of information that you think that is really, really important for someone that is starting in this market or wants to explore a little bit more, besides your courses, because you already have a 30-day course that will help people develop a growth mindset, and also lead them towards these principles. And if you want, you can also give us a quick intro on that. I would like also, what is the piece of device that we'll consider that is the most important for newcomers?
Yeah, so yeah, as you said, like on my side, you can get like the growth lever cheat sheet, which is like a 30-page ebook, and we have like a 30-day challenge with a lot of information that I believe that if you go through that thoroughly, like you can really up level your brain, and you will never look at growth in the same way as before, and that it can really leverage your growth in the companies you're either going to start or you're going to work for. If I would start out, I'm a big fan of the book Start from Zero from Dane Maxwell, which really explains really well on how to start a company and really the essence of business. And I think a lot of people in growth forget that essence of business, that people just want to have a pain, and they want to get a certain result, and they use you or your company to get there. And a lot of companies are not able to articulate, like, who is that problem, who is that person, which problem do they have, which results do they want to have, what's the entry point when we come in, what's the exit point where our mechanism is not needed anymore. So getting back to the basics, it's like fitness. Like, there are a couple of big movements that you need to do, and if you really master those, you can really come a long way. So like, start applying those principles, and just do it. And once you're doing it, like, figure out what the patterns are. So for example, I'm now running a campaign where I try to interview people, and a very simple example, but I sent a LinkedIn invite to somebody. They didn't accept my LinkedIn invite, but I saw that they downloaded my ebook. And 1 hour later, he accepted my invitation, and he basically wanted to follow up with me because he had read my ebook.
Hmm.
So I noticed the pattern that probably if I include a link to the ebook once I do the outreach, that will make
Conversion rate.
my conversion rate go up. And it's just like an endless one, but it's a pattern. And then you see a pattern, you really try to validate it, optimize, and based on that, really iterate your learning. And because I think in that way, in a very short amount of time, I can build up a structure where I know that it works, and I also know why it works. And I think building that brain, that can really help a lot of people to do that, especially if you do that early on in your career.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Chris. So everyone wants to know more, just follow Chris on LinkedIn, Facebook, and go to his website. You can learn a lot with him. And thank you so much once again for this interview, Chris.
You're welcome. Thank you.